Remember, if you don't like your face, take someone else's.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Legends by Night, brought to you right now by The Stuff. Yes, I actually found a merchandise product out in the world that represents this amazing 80s film. I saw it and I was like, that hat is mine. And, well, I'm not going to take it off right now, but it's a trucker hat. The style I like to wear.
Show it again.
It's a nice trucker hat, man. No artificial ingredients.
Stuff.
And also, look at this shirt, Return of the Living Dead, but it glows in the motherfucking dark.
So
That's
cool.
sweet.
Yeah, just two of the really awesome things I came out with from Horror Hound, which we're not going to discuss that today, but real soon we're going to be talking a lot about Horror Hound, and I'm working on a documentary based on all the footage I got for it. So
Horror Hound?
Yes, Horror Hound weekend that I just came back from. So yeah, it was a great time, and we'll be talking about that a lot on a show that's not this one, because I got to get back to some semblance of normal after, the craziness of hanging out with people, and trying to get eggs stolen from me from a basket at a haunt that I went to with Ron and Pyle and Matt and other people. Like it was the craziest weekend I have had in a very long time overall. So yeah, focusing on Legends by Night is probably what I need right now.
So,
Go ahead.
God. I was just gonna see how Ray was doing. I almost broke my nose last night. It was super fun.
Oh no.
Yeah, Reddit Hosker is now he doesn't get a drink. He's my designated walker. I wasn't drunk or anything. I'm just a klutz, and I was getting up and I was walking to go to the bathroom and I tripped over my laundry and I reached out and caught nothing, and then my face caught a table all the way across here. I just landed with the corner of it on my nose and the rest of it across the side of my face and thought I broke my nose.
Well, don't do that. That hurts.
Yeah, it really hurt. It still hurts. I didn't bruise or anything, and I'm really happy about that. And it was a rounded corner, so I didn't cut my face open and get stitches. But
it's crazy.
Well, maybe you'll develop superpowers to be able to see the future. We can call you Nostradamus.
I feel like I'm partially responsible because I just had my weird little fall like a week or so ago where I hit my head on that sink, and I feel like I should have waited a little bit longer to send the rain back to you. Like I think I rattled it before I sent it, and it just
This is the second time in under 6 months where I have caught myself with my face when I've fallen. The other time it was up against a wall, one of those ones between a doorway, so I just smacked my head straight into the wall. That was awesome.
Right?
I do these things. So, yeah, just wanted to share. Just passing around.
I did something really hilarious today. I think it's hilarious. So I got this new phone, right? Before I left town. I got it last Thursday. And let me just tell you, The company I was with before, AirTalk Wireless, still has not ported my phone 5 days later. So today, I got angry about it. Well, kind of angry, but I amused myself because when a company gives you the runaround, you gotta have fun with it. So today, like amidst filing reports with the FCC and the Better Business Bureau and all that, I decided to take a page from one of my favorite books, Fantastic Land. And the end of this book, they're interviewing the main character is interviewing who is believed to be basically the serial killer of Fantastic Land, which segue into serial killers. And the reporter makes a mistake of calling Brock by his first name, and Brock does not appreciate being called by his first name because not only do they not know each other, there's been no sort of respect generated between Brock and the interviewer for the interviewer to feel like he should be okay with using the first name. So I basically gave a rep that I literally brought the book up to make sure I had everything right and just changed the name to the customer service person. And I did the entire little mini monologue that Brock does in the book to this customer service rep. And then just like Brock, I repeated the customer service rep's first name after every single sentence to the entire 42-minute conversation. They were very uncomfortable, and you could tell they were freaking the fuck out. And I was just talking like this. Like, okay, I need help with my phone today, Dell. You've not ported out my number, Dell. When can I expect this to be finished, Dell? And I mean, it was just 40-some minutes of me just doing this every sentence. And it may seem ridiculous and silly, but let me just tell you, I had a lot of fun with it because I felt like if they were going to waste my time, I should get something out of it.
Too bad you didn't record it.
I mean,
They did.
Oh, yeah, they did. When people are going to hear this call, they're probably going to use this for training. Like, when you get a person like this, just say yes, sir, and do what they ask because they may know where you live.
When I screw with customer service reps, it's like I don't make them uncomfortable. I called one time when I was pregnant and was like, "Excuse me, Mr. Nabisco rep, I need to know, is a Fig Newton really a cookie or not? Because on all the commercials you say, it is not a cookie, mother. It is a Fig Newton. However, upon the box is written Fig Newton cookies. So is it a cookie or is it not a cookie? I want to know, is your advertising lying or is your box lying?" And he was laughing so hard. He had to go and get his manager. And as we discussed it, it was like the manager got on an extra headset. So the three of us had this like 15-minute long discussion where the manager was like, "I'm sorry, you've been lied to by our commercials, but yes, it is a cookie." So in case you guys were ever wondering, a Fig Newton is, yes, a cookie. Even though
Well, if that's the case, then a Pop-Tart's a cookie too.
Yes.
No. Actually, no. Pop-Tart is a pastry. It says so on the box.
Yeah. It's based off of a pastry. It's
all right, but if you were to enlarge a Fig Newton out the Pop-Tart size, they're essentially the same thing.
Then it would be a cookie loaf.
Yeah, they would be if you enlarge the fig, but they're not enlarged.
It's the way that it's made, though, and the different type of crust that's used on it, crust or cookie layer, are different. Therefore,
things that have flaky crusts are typically pastries. Weird.
And
so is a hot dog a sandwich?
That is a question that you can never get into with people because I worked at a hot dog place for a while and I researched everything there was to know about hot dogs and like when they were made, what they were done, and the argument over whether or not it is a sandwich is still up for debate by like theologians.
Oh yeah, well, and then you go into whether a taco is a sandwich. Listen, we're gonna solve this on the next padded cell, guys. So make sure you stick around for that. Find out when the next time we're gonna do that is, because between the shit show we were discussing last time and this, like we're gonna have and Horror Hound, we're gonna have a very full padded cell the next one we do. I did have a fun conversation with Saran Wrap once because this was all in emails. I decided that I wanted to sue the Saran Wrap company on behalf of a friend of mine. Because in lieu of a condom, my friend, I recommended Saran Wrap because Saran Wrap's logo is, in fact, it was, by the way, at this time, not anymore, was keeping the freshness in. So my thought was that if he was really in a bind, he could just use a hair tie and saran wrap. And I was not being serious about this, but he was drunk and remembered this old conversation and thought it would work. And his girlfriend got pregnant. So on his behalf, I sent an email to Saran Wrap, letting them know that I was my friend's lawyer. And we were looking into a possible lawsuit. And I explained the situation. And like their response, I don't remember it word for word, 'cause this was like almost towards the beginning of emails kind of being a thing. So like they were still kind of a weird joke that we, did things with. And they explained to me that, they weren't supposed to be used as condoms. And I said, where in your packaging and your slogan of keeping the freshness in, is there a logo or a warning or anything of any kind saying this should not be used as a condom? And they're like, well, sir, that's not on our package. I was like, oh, okay, so then we can sue you because you did not account for this. And they said, well, they were very confused. And then I got forwarded to the legal department, who later informed me that while technically I could sue them because there was no such warning, that it would probably cost both sides a lot of money. And the best that could happen is that we would be spending so much money in fees that it would probably bankrupt us personally, and they would only have to maybe pay at best tens of thousands of dollars to change some of their packaging and put a new warning on it. And I briefly considered starting like a group fund just to make them change their packaging, but then I got high and lost interest.
Of course.
And this was like 3 or 4 weeks of back and forth emails. Just at one point in time, we printed it out
Right,
and
Afro
all the
Man.
emails, and we put them up on the wall at one of our band houses, just because.
I was gonna sue Saran Wrap, but then I got high.
I was excited and went like this, and like I had this like big gulp over here next to me, and thank God it was empty because like when I had my moment just now, I knocked that cup like halfway across the damn room, but it was empty, so that could have been a lot worse than it was just now. But I'm pretty sure though that Saran Wrap baby, 'cause I still call him the Saran Wrap baby, and he's like 19. No, he's gonna be 21 this year. But I still call him.
I wonder why.
I still call him the Saran Wrap baby though, and but luckily he did not turn out to be a serial killer. He's a pretty well adjusted kid.
So
Segue number 2.
I won't find him in the most evil men and women in history. He's not going to show up in volume 4.
Correct. There is no current listing for the Saran Wrap killer.
Okay, so originally with serial killers, they had thought that they were vampires or werewolves because they could not fathom the idea that humans were doing this. And this thought process lasted into the 1920s with Albert Fish. And then after that, there started becoming more press about it, more looking into what it was actually happening, and then we get an entire history of what serial killers are throughout the ages up until now, and they started looking further back in time to what they were thinking were what could have been animal, what could have been human, and now we're building such this very fantastical and scary history of what these people have done.
Oh yeah. I want to point out that during this show, we're not going to reiterate a bunch of information you guys can find on other shows because there's millions of shows out there that cover each serial killer out there to such like amazing fucking degree that I feel like if we did that, that's taking away from other communities. We're not glorifying serial killers, although we are interested in the psychology, because we're not glorifying the fact that people are out there murdering people. So I want to bring up that point. And then finally, the other thing that we were just not going to do is sit here and read Wikipedia to you, because that's insulting to all of us. So what we're going to talk about is some of the cases that we found interesting. If this turns into a multi-parter, cool. But I just wanted to kind of lay those ground rules for you, the viewers at home, to kind of know what to expect rolling into this, because we're going to outline the shit out of this. It's kind of what we do.
Is anybody finding irony in that?
I might have moments where I'm like, oh my god, I love that guy, but I'm not like, I'm so glad he murdered all those people. It's just one of those like, he was pretty intelligent the way he did this. So forgive me if I seem super enthusiastic about serial killers. I am, but not in a, as he was saying, glorification kind of way. I'm not out to emulate them or encourage other people to become them. It's that fascination that you get, sometimes the turning your head at the really bad accident sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
I have that. So.
Yeah. And we may on this episode, or if we do another one, we know people that have like loose attachments or even some pretty firm attachments to serial killers and who have some weird experiences. So we may even get a caller today, someone that we bring in. Because I know Michelle has actually had a close encounter with an actual real serial killer that was notated. So like if she feels like it today or the next time, we might bring her in to talk about that for a minute. But if you guys out there have had any run-ins or experiences, I mean, again, psychologically speaking, I don't know what could be more in the world of murder. I don't know what could be more story-based for the Elliott Network than talking about the psychology of serial killers. It's intriguing.
Yeah.
I want to go back to something that Jenny just said, that for the longest time they thought it was vampires or werewolves or whatnot because people couldn't believe that humans would have the audacity to do something like that. And am I the only one that sees the irony in that statement?
No.
No.
Like explain like the irony for you. So I know I'm on the right page.
All right. So let me preface this with a question.
Okay.
If you kill multiple people, then what defines you as a serial killer?
Killing them not in self-defense or in immediate state of just like rage, fits of passion or something. When you actually plot, plan, go out and kill multiple people with the intent just to kill them.
Yep. So there's other little things that are involved in that too. Go ahead, Pyle.
I do know the difference between a killer and a serial killer is the number.
No, actually, that's not true. That would be the difference between someone committing murder and a multiple murder or a murder spree killer. Like, there's a lot of different terminologies once you get into the murder world.
I thought it was 3.
In fact, you're unlikely to be a serial killer if you kill, like, say, 17 people at once. You're a multiple murderer. And there's other terms for that as well. Serial killings take generally place over a period of any given period of time, and there's usually like a modus operandi between, amongst the serial killers. Yeah, there's certain victim profiles and stuff that each serial killer seems to be, attracted to, for example. It's psychological.
All right, so here's my thinking on that. See, serial killers are people who kill multiple targets in ritualistic or choreographed methods with specific intent of getting a point across or upholding a standard. Wow, that's a lot of words.
Yeah, that's that. Yeah,
but it's a really good statement, and yeah, I think that she's on the money with that. But here's my logic. For the it's not so much what makes somebody a serial killer, like how many people you kill over a certain period of time. It's that the thing I take issue with is that people couldn't believe that someone would have the audacity to do that. That is what I find ironic, considering how violent our history is as humans. When you think about let's say the Crusades, or when you think about all of the wars, or when you think about all of the torture that people were put under for frivolous reasons, maybe to get information, or maybe just because the torturer was into that sort of thing. The fact that people could say, well, how could somebody have the audacity to do that? Hello, have you not read a history book and seen like the sheer creativity of ways of death people have concocted over the years?
Back then, no. Answer your question, no. Because we didn't have history books then.
Well, we did, but they were localized.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean. Like we had localized
Mhm.
stuff. Like people didn't know world history, especially when our country was young and people were like, getting taught by like teachers and like barns and like churches and shit like that. Like people
Well,
didn't get
Jenny
taught
said
like
on up
that.
to the 1920s. We had history books by then.
Well, yeah, by
That
then.
really fled up until the 1920s. We obviously had history books. People knew about the violence that was committed in the early days of our country and the countries preceding us. The only difference that I see that makes it a serial killer or somebody that's doing these things maybe sociologically or pathologically is whether or not they're doing it anonymously versus out in public where everybody knows it's happening.
For those that argue like Mandela are serial killers, no, they are mass murdering fuckheads. Mass murderers are just machines with no regard for the action or human life. They kill no matter the method, just to kill. The lack of intent or ritual to give the kills meaning is what makes them machines, but not just serial killers. But up in the like one of the first one that got the idea started about serial killers, Albert Fish, people were saying he was a vampire.
Yep.
Instead of a serial killer, because at that point nobody had actually put that much of thought that nobody in their community would be out doing that sort of thing, let alone to children or adults.
It was easier to believe in the supernatural than to admit that people themselves could do this.
Because there's a difference between like wartime atrocities and like a lot of the atrocities you're talking about, and then just an individual and everyday neighborhood just hunting people down like that. It's a different mindset, and it made the world way too scary of a place for people to think about that.
I think people were trying to rationalize what was happening to these kids because they didn't have any leads or any clues as to what was going on. I think the difference is that Albert Fish was leading a second life that other people didn't know about. In fact, I think he was leading multiple lives. Didn't he have like several identities?
Yep.
I don't really think he did a great job at leading the multiple lives he led, if I'm being honest with you. Like,
didn't.
He liked to be spanked by anyone and anyone that would spank him. I mean, like,
he even did it to himself
in public, in front of people, all the time. Like he did have he tried to lead separate lives, but there was just so much bleed over between them that he was just very bad at it. Very bad at it.
Well, didn't H.H. Holmes precede Albert Fish?
No.
Well,
he came after.
Were you saying
Holmes came after Fish?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
I
just
thought
going
Holmes
to say,
was in the late
Hey guys,
1800s.
guys, hold on. Dell's been trying to talk.
Oh, no, that's okay. I can look that up real quick while you guys are.
Okay.
And then I'll get back into what I was saying.
Okay.
So I was thinking Fish was in the 1900s and Holmes was in the late 1800s.
Yeah, he was in the late 1800s, but nobody actually knew about that in most communities because it hadn't spread across the country.
Yeah, news of what he had done. Like a lot of this stuff that we know now is famous now. Like when people were out murdering each other, like serial killers and such, it was very localized. Like as big as Jack the Ripper was, man, it was localized until it got bigger, and then it was only with a much passage of time that even a lot of that information got out and popularized.
Hi, Tom Dog.
Hi, Tom.
So it's weird to look at it in the modern time with that kind of lens. Hey.
Yeah, they were about the same age actually, and Fish committed his murders from 1924 to 1928, while Holmes was mostly active between 91 and 94, or 1891 and 1894. But a lot of his stuff, like I said, wasn't discovered until later on. He wasn't.
Right.
But yeah, he did precede Albert Fish. He was just bizarre.
They just didn't realize that he was killing all of these people in secret.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, Holmes is like attributed as being like after the fact America's first serial killer. Yeah.
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 And lots of interesting things about him. Like he wanted to be buried under. I have it up here right now. I can look, but like under a bunch of different things, his grave sealed and put under concrete and all this stuff. And they've actually tried then to go through and dig him up, and there were like fake coffins placed around and all sorts of just really strange things about him, because he was worried because at some points they would dig people up if they were witches and mess with their bodies, but they'd have him like buried face down doing that, and he had him go through and do all of that for him. And when they've gone back to try to find him again, it was like, oh, that's not actually him that's there, and maybe we go deeper, we don't know.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, though, is there's a book called The Alienist by Caleb Carr, and they just recently did a series on it. I didn't watch the television series, so I don't know how close to the book it was. And that was set in about 1896, so that's kind of between these two sets of murders. But it goes into, back then they didn't really have so much psychology. An alienist was your psychologist, and it shows how they first started kind of profiling and studying serial killers. And it brings in fingerprinting wasn't a thing until then. And Teddy Roosevelt features prominently in it. Just he's in the Alienist, and there was a follow-up book, Angel of Death or something like that, I think. But it's some really, Angel of Darkness is the one, and then there's the Angel of Darkness 2. But it follows and studies like how amazed people were at the time. It's a fictional novel, but it is like based upon how the police procedurals and everything worked at the time, and how people were just like, how in the hell did this happen? Why are these people doing this? And it gives a lot of the confusion at the time of tracking down one person connected to multiple different murders.
Right. What was that?
Sorry, something came across.
We know what you're watching. Naughty man.
I thought it was the notification of weather. No, it was something else by the Weather Channel.
Ooh.
Sure it was.
The Weather Channel.
Whether it will or whether it won't, you don't know.
Well, whatever the weather.
Yep. For me, like anytime I think, serial killer, I think back to, Jack the Ripper is the one that, in my opinion, it's probably, I'm going to say famous. I should say infamous, the most infamous serial killer of all time, because it's the one that people most often, talk about, or, have a fascination with, or what have you. And he's also one of the biggest divisive conversations on who actually was Jack the Ripper, because there's so many different theories about it, and it's fucking crazy.
And it's still unsolved.
This is one of the best books that you can get, as far as discovering the theory of it. It's the Mammoth Book of Jack the Ripper, edited by Maxim Chukabowski and Nathan Brond, and it covers all of the different murders, but it also all of the different books that have been written about the murders. It was actually in my bathroom. I had to grab it. It's my bathroom reading.
Nice.
I have a whole shelf of serial killer stuff, but one of the other best references as far as like giving you all the information without really taking an opinion is The Complete Jack the Ripper by Donald Rumbelow. And this will give you all the breakdown, all of the scientific information, everything that was released up until the book was. And it's very, very informative, and just, I at one point in time wrote a story. It's for somebody else's college project, and they didn't have time to write it, so I wrote it for them. And it was about choose somebody who made a big difference and impact in the welfare of a community. And I wrote about Jack the Ripper because due to the crimes of Jack the Ripper, they actually ended up sending a lot more police and rebuilding the Whitechapel district into a better place to live just because they were like, oh, people just keep dying and nobody cares. Oh, now people care. Oh, we should do something. So, yeah.
Right.
So Amina says, what she finds fascinating about Jack the Ripper stories is that each differing scenario / killer has a great story as to why they would do what they did. Each one makes its own kind of sense, but in the end, we just don't have enough evidence to lean to any one as the absolute. And I gotta say, you're right. You're 1,000,000% right on this, man. Like the two books Del just mentioned, I agree, are probably the most comprehensive ones where you can just read all the information and gather your own conclusions. As far as like books about actual, the personalized theories and beliefs and their investigations, my favorite one is actually Portrait of a Killer, Case Closed by Patricia Cornwell. Uh, for me, that's the theory that makes not in its entirety, but it makes more sense to me and bigger pieces than a lot of the other theories. I would say, like, again, just for me personally, but I do still prefer the two books that Del brought up from an academic, standpoint on them.
But that's also why these cases are timeless, is because they never were solved. So they just become fodder for imagination and people constantly coming up with different stories and based on the different ideas that they can have about it and trying to make connections and so on and so forth. So as long as they remain unsolved, we'll still continue seeing new movies and new books and everything coming out for them.
Yep, this is true. Imagine this. The killer was just a pimp.
That would
And
not
that's
surprise me. I mean, it
possible
was
too.
Whitechapel.
I personally believe in James Maybrick from The Diary of Jack the Ripper. He is my go-to, but I also very much enjoyed um, Alan Moore's From Hell, which the movie, it's the
The
same
movie made me angry.
plan.
Just
I
gonna say
I didn't
that.
watch them. I didn't watch the movie. I read the book though, and it was a really interesting history of going through. I don't necessarily believe. I don't believe in who was chosen with the prince and that all this cover up with people. It seemed
It
just
was a
like a
lot.
lot of effort.
Yeah.
But it's a very well written graphic novel if you want to study a lot of the history behind
Oh
it.
yeah. It's
Again,
great.
Look into the book The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. It goes into the lives of the victims of Jack the Ripper. Oh,
That's
damn.
awesome. That actually, yeah, that would be an amazing one to pick up. I think one of the reasons why I enjoyed Patricia Cornwell's look at it is it wasn't that complicated. Like her whole concept was that it was a painter, Walter Sickert, and the whole thing was, we know for a fact in some of Sickert's paintings, which were coming out around that time, like some of his most famous paintings actually had the crime scenes of some of the scenes that he could not have possibly had details of as the paintings were coming out during the murders. And he actually had multiple artist dens in different areas of Whitechapel, not even just in Whitechapel. He had some in France, he had some in London, like he even had supposedly a couple in America. Like, and he was just someone that traveled a lot. He did have a medical disorder. He was abused by his mother. And it was like a lot of the things that people surmised about whoever Jack the Ripper could be. She was like, yeah, that's probably true. And here's how that actually directly relates to this guy that could come and go the fuck as he pleases without having to have convoluted backstories and cover ups. And
hmm
it was simple. And sometimes the simplest explanations, oftentimes the simplest explanation is the explanation. But again, I didn't believe, I didn't follow everything that she thought either. I just thought it was simplified. It was like,
the
okay,
way that, yeah, the reason with the diary for me, the way that we lucked out on that is that James Maybrick himself was so well known because his wife was tried for his murder because he was addicted to uh, arsenic. And the doctors were telling him to stop taking arsenic, and she kept giving it to him. So she was like an American that was tried for his murder in England. And because of that, we can follow his entire history. And he was present in Whitechapel every time something happened because they so closely tracked down his life through that.
So Mina says there's another theory on one of the Ripper forums that Secret was not the killer, but was painting for the Ripper from the aristocracy, not necessarily a royal, but someone of title, which is an interesting theory because that would imply that Secret knew who Jack the Ripper was if he was painting for him.
Well, he's actually brought up in a lot of people's theories on who Jack the Ripper is. I mean, Patricia Cornwell was the only one that famously said, "I think it was him," but he's referenced in a lot of different theories as if not him, someone who is directly tied into something involving what was going on, someone on the inside somehow.
I think that there is probably a case that could be made for stating that whoever Jack the Ripper was of nobility, maybe not a royal, but someone of class to be able to get away with doing what
he was bored and killing hookers.
There's some theories that state that it was a wannabe doctor or somebody that might have gone to medical school because the first couple of killings were kind of messy, not very good. But as they went on, as they kept finding the victims, the slayings were getting more refined. That he was getting better at it.
And also the leather apron theory with it being a butcher.
Yes.
Somebody who would also have some anatomical knowledge as well as skill with the blade.
Yep.
Sickert is...
Go ahead.
No, Jenny, go.
Sickert is referenced in 4 of the major theories on Ripper. And because of the paintings he did around the times that had the details from Whitechapel.
We actually have one of his paintings in Ohio, and I've studied it quite a bit in person. It's gone back and forth between Dayton, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland at different times. But it seems to be in like someone's personal collection in Ohio because it's always findable at one of our major art museums.
There's also theory stating that Jack the Ripper could have been more than one person, or possibly the original Ripper maybe passed away or moved out or was caught for something else and somebody took up in his stead.
Yeah, there were similar killings that not all that long after Jack the Ripper disappeared and the killing stopped in Whitechapel that kicked up in France. And then sometime after that in America. And for quite some time, there was this enormous theory that H.H. Holmes was actually Jack the Ripper and went from Whitechapel to France to America. And that was a big part of what was kind of all looped into that. Like, that
I've heard that theory as well, but I don't know if the chronology would line up as well as we would like for H.H. Holmes to be Jack the Ripper.
Only if it was indeed multiple people.
Yeah,
that's the only way I think that could. Yeah, I think if it was just one person, I don't buy that it was Holmes at all.
I think there's too much information on Holmes that I think he was actually born in the U.S. That I don't think he would have ever traveled outside of the States to go practice his craft elsewhere before he came back to the States.
If you
and he would have owned it.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, he was very. He wanted people to know.
Proud of himself.
Well, that's the thing with H.H. Holmes, because he actually, I think he owned a hotel, and I believe it was in Chicago, and he catered to other people that were like him. So there were other killers staying in that hotel that were killing people under their own experimentations. They would have known who H.H. Holmes was or what he was doing because they were doing it themselves.
Yeah.
And then they would get rid of the bodies by putting the bodies in lye, getting rid of all of the flesh, and then selling the skeletons to the medical school.
We got to see some an interesting side of H.H. My brain is dead. H.H. Holmes in the TV show American Horror Story Hotel, where you actually had James Patrick March doing a lot of this that had the hotel and the shoots and the body shoots and everything he did, actually holding the dinners that he held once a year and for the show, it was on Halloween, and all the serial killers would come and play poker and drink and and do whatever they do. Like it was kind of a really cool thing with March, versus Holmes, versus also consorting with it, like having a club of serial killers, and like the way they did that, and the way they do a lot of these things in pop culture are pretty smooth and interesting. But I think the most recent interesting pop culture thing with Holmes is that there's a super famous series of video games called the Dark Picture anthologies. The most recent one, I have to look up the name of it, I own it, is about specifically H.H. Holmes. And basically someone does like a recreation of his murder hotel, more or less. And it is haunted for some reason suddenly, and there's a paranormal investigative team going in to discover like the truth about Holmes and the murders and the hauntings and all this stuff. I haven't gotten that far in the game yet because I haven't had a chance to play a lot of games, but like it's crazy that even now, and this game just came out like last year, so like even today there's still pop culture, to Holmes, which the Ripper I get, but to still have that going so strong for Holmes, I thought was really interesting.
It makes me wonder because of the construction of the hotel had a lot of fake walls and hidden rooms and passageways that nobody could find and things like that. All the things that you would find in a typical Batman episode.
Yeah.
Or your typical haunted house with spinning walls and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
What happened to the construction workers or the engineers that designed that hotel? You would think, wouldn't they have questioned, like, what is this dude doing? They might not have known what all of the passageways and everything were for, but
they were murdered.
Wouldn't it have caused some speculation? Like, why is he building this?
You have to understand, there were multiple sets of the plans when that was built. So most of the people only had certain parts of the plans and only the parts that they were particularly working on. So most of the people that were involved in the construction didn't even know about like the secret and hidden stuff. There were only certain people that worked on those parts of things. And as far as the lore and everything behind Holmes goes, it was like the Joker thing where, like in the Dark Knight, where no one knew who was in charge of what. And like your instructions were to kill the person next to you, sort of thing. There was a lot of people paid off and a lot of bodies throughout all that construction. And the fewer the people that knew about the secret stuff, the better. And if you found out, you went missing. If you knew about it, inevitably you killed someone because that was what you were paid to do for him, or you were killed. So there was a lot of murders and a lot of death that happened around that. Just almost none of it from his own actual hand.
And we had Stefan said up here, Maybrick was he's from the Diary of Jack the Ripper, and he was married, like I said before, to he was a shipper and an importer of, I believe, wool, and he married someone from the United States. That was his wife, Fanny, I believe. And I was trying to find something in here, but yeah, the other thing in that book was when I was reading it, and I couldn't find the exact quote, but at the time it was being written, the Jack the Ripper website, like who is Jack the Ripper?
Yeah,
it was either the top or one of the top 5 or 10 websites as far as traffic goes on the internet.
Wow.
Yeah, it had that much flow to it, and the book is a little bit out of date. It's not up to 2023, or 2024, but that's huge. And I've been to the website too.
Same,
and
yeah.
It's full of people just constantly spouting out theories, and it's really interesting.
Fun fact about me, I huge fascination with Jack the Ripper. But I did some writings and some AOL gaming, early on, where I surmised that if I was going to stick with the belief that it was Walter Sickert, he was approached with his own box to solve, and Walter Sickert becomes the Cenobite, and I wrote a whole series of stories, also with Amina, about Walter Sickert becoming a serial killer, called The Machine. It's pretty fucked. It was some of the most fucked up writing I ever did. It was great. I loved every bit of it. And I had actually gotten a chance at one point many years ago to talk to Clive Barker about that concept.
Nice.
It's one of my crowning life achievements, I think, was that conversation with him that he probably had no idea what was going on for, but that was okay because I knew.
I've told these guys before, but I was going through all my photos folders at one point, my pics folders on my computer, trying to organize everything and make sure everything was in its place. And I accidentally came across Catherine Eddowes' autopsy photographs in my family folder. And I was like, oh, nope, she's not part of the family. Yes, I have those photos on my computer, but she's not on my family.
Now, Jenny, you were talking about fish earlier. And yes. you had mentioned fish to me like previously when we were talking about doing the serial killers. Like, did you have more on fish or more you wanted to talk about with fish? So I don't want to just skip over it.
Okay, the reason that it's not exactly what fish that did, it's the thought process behind everybody seeing him as a vampire, and the idea of not even being sure if you're going to have enough money to eat, so let alone looking in the papers or being able to read anything from overseas and know about other serial killers that may have come before him. And then suddenly in your community, there's no way to figure out why the children are disappearing, what's actually happening, and what's going on. And Albert Fish had done, even in the letter he sent, it was a horrific thing.
That was,
and so that was also something I wanted to put in to reply to what Ron was saying. Of course they did. They're just trying to figure out how to live and get through, and some of them weren't even able to read. And he stuck out most today in my brain because I looked at a whole lot as why he's considered one of the more publicized in that area.
It's interesting too, because when you talk to people about serial killers, believe it or not, fish is not one that comes up super often. It's generally the people that are like really fascinated by the psychology of serial killers in general that actually talk about fish and like, bring up fish, which it's worth bringing up for exactly what you're talking about. And especially the vampire angle, which is cool that we finally wrapped up vampires, and, you brought up fish first in the episode with that relation, because you're right. There was a lot of that involved with that. And there's quite a bit of logging, like Appalachian logging, like myths and legends, like the hide behind cryptid it's actually believed that it was just used as an excuse for people to murder each other in logging crews, people that had disagreements. So one person would murder everyone and then like fuck themselves up really bad, then like drag themselves out of the woods with this whole invented story about this creature they ran across or things like that, because it was something people did in Appalachia when they had a grudge. They would, not even just in Appalachia, but a lot of places in a lot of logging camps. There was actually a lot of fucking straight up murder in logging camps, and people got away with it.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Pyle. So Pyle has a little bit of experience. He was a serial killer once, years back, and I thought he might want to, have some time to talk about his exploits.
Go ahead, Pyle. Talk about your crimes.
He hasn't talked in a while, and I haven't done something super terrible to include anyone in a bit. So
yeah,
there you go, buddy. Welcome.
I was a serial killer, and then I got diabetes.
Yeah,
diabetes.
Yeah, I think everybody froze up.
No. That's the kind of serial killer I meant.
No, seriously. I said that, and everybody was froze.
Oh, on your end?
I was like, yeah, and wait, everybody's frozen. So I can see everybody moving now, but yeah.
Can you see me move? Okay.
And I always loved the Muffin Man. The story behind the Muffin Man, I really do. I no one really in your childhood, did you know what the Muffin Man song was?
I to this day don't, so please elaborate.
Really?
The Muffin Man is actually a warning for children, because they were actually being abducted by the Muffin Man. The guy was not the best baker in the world, and he was abducting children.
Mm-hmm.
And they always just went around singing, "Do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man?" And it was so funny.
And he lives on Drury Lane, by the way, because he did.
But that was the whole thing. That is how they taught their kids to be aware of this suspect. It wasn't confirmed. It was just a lot of all weird coincidences. And I never read that it was confirmed that, yes, he was a serial killer. It just says that, they had their suspicions because the children were disappearing by the Muffin Man.
So that was based on a local baker in that area named Frederick Thomas Linwood, who lived on Drury Lane in London. And he supposedly lured children into a dark alley by he would tie baked goods, like English muffins and things like that, onto a string to like kind of lure them in. Like he was children fishing, basically. And that he would lure them in and murder them. And this happened a long time ago. And the weirdest part is that there's no actual historic records of Linwood himself, like historically, but his name is known like through the family lineage of like who would have owned the bakery at that time, et cetera, et cetera. So nothing was proven, but they did find a lot of evidence in the alleys, basically all around and surrounding that bakery.
That wasn't part of my childhood song thing. I just didn't know that one. I don't think I heard it until Shrek.
Really?
I mean, I somehow knew what it was, but it wasn't something that we sang in Nebraska.
It's like how, London Bridges.
Yeah.
London Bridges, that's when they were coming down, what is it? Ring Around the Rosie is about the plague. Like all these children's stories, man, that are just about absolutely terrible things.
Had a lot of those, but didn't have the Muffin Man. It wasn't. We
Heck, Humpty Dumpty.
Nebraska.
Humpty Dumpty is about a cannon that fell off the wall.
Yeah.
Really?
What was one that you guys had in Nebraska?
In Nebraska? No, we had like a lot of the traditional ones, but we didn't. I don't know, and like because I was a weirdly raised child, I did know Lizzie Borden had an axe by the time I was like 4. But
oh yeah.
I was born on Halloween, so it was a challenge for everyone to introduce as much horror to me as possible, because that should have been my life, and so that's what so now that's why I'm here. And look, I have talents. But it was just like, we're gonna show her all the horror movies, we're gonna tell her all the scary references, we're gonna do this to her. This is what we're gonna do, because she was born on Halloween, therefore she must be from hell. So I know all this shit because that's how I was raised.
Oh yeah.
Good parenting. It really was. So I mean, love mom, great job. But, yeah. What are you gonna watch now? I will watch TV. Okay, here's the why.
Well, you didn't turn out to be a serial killer, so I guess it was good parenting, right?
Yes.
At least not as far as we know.
That was about to be like, here, watch Amityville. It's only 10 p.m. Enjoy. I'm leaving.
Right. And that's a whole other ball of wax, because he was either a murderer or there really was a haunting going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, not serial killer per se, but still, murder. Murder.
Yeah, that's when somebody has a psychotic break. That's another difference between like is somebody a serial killer, or is it some sort of like Ron had brought up initially?
Yeah. Yep.
You can be a spree killer would be like Charlie Starkweather, who is the Lincoln, Nebraska. If you live here and you are from Lincoln, you have a story about Charlie Starkweather, and it's how close you can put yourself. Like, people introduce themselves at times with I had a friend who, I'm not gonna spoil his name, but he was like, "Hi, I am so-and-so, and yes, that was my great aunt and uncle that were murdered by Charlie Starkweather at this location, blah blah blah." My taxi driver will be like,
"Degrees of Kevin Bacon."
Yeah, basically, there'll be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, how you doing? I'm John the taxi driver. so you know Starkweather? Yeah, my daughter was best friends with Caroline Fugate, and like the day before he started killing people, he gave them both a ride home, and so she was hanging out with him the day before he killed people. I'm just like, great. Can I get to the dentist, please? Just go there. That's all I'm trying to do. I mean, like, good story, but you get them.
Story, bro.
Yeah, you get them all the time. It's crazy here. It's like, yeah, have to prove you're a real Lincolnite because you got some connection to Charlie Starkweather.
Oh yeah. And I remember we were just talking about Peter Jackson in the Tomb, last Monday, and the Frightener specifically. They had the character played by Jake Busey, who was kind of, in a way, a version of Starkweather. Like a lot of that story kind of ended up popping up in his character, but also he wasn't Starkweather because he references that later on that I got one more than Starkweather. So it was this weird, like almost like a meta Starkweather thing with some facts and things changed about it. It was super odd to watch it and know about Starkweather and go, oh, he was based on Starkweather. And then he starts talking about Starkweather, and you're like, okay, no, that's not right.
See, here's the other thing that Starkweather's nickname in like school and stuff was Little Red because he was a smaller guy. And according to another cab driver, his dad was a super abusive alcoholic, so he never stood a chance anyway. But this is just hearsay. But when I was doing stand-up comedy, I had a whole serial killer bit, and it was like right then that our mascot is Herbie Husker, and they started trying out a new mascot called Little Red. And I'm like, we're so devoted to Starkweather here in Lincoln that we're going to make him our football mascot in the stand-up bit. And Little Red got gotten rid of rather. He stuck around for a while, but
I think
like,
Ohio
okay.
just gave up on like idolizing different serial killers because there were so many to pick from. So like one day in the future, they're going to change our state logo to Ohio. It's for murderers. And that's just
Ohio.
That's,
or it'll be welcome to Kentucky. You made it out of Ohio alive.
You survived. Good job.
Nebraska, it's not for everyone.
And that brings me to a question. Talking
Seriously,
about Ohio killers and people that were active or related to Ohio in different weird ways. Charles Manson.
Oh, I didn't know he was related to Ohio.
He's got some Ohio ties as well. Yeah. Is he even a fucking serial killer? I say no. A lot of people say no, but a lot of people argue about this.
He was a cult leader, and there were the murders out in the desert that some of them they have never found.
Mm-hmm.
But
the question is whether or not he's the one that actually committed the murders, or did he have the people kill for him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically that
brings into the Manson family, which was also referenced in the Frighteners, because there was a lot of serial killer references by different characters in the Frighteners. Where supposedly Jeffrey Combs' character, the FBI agent, lived for a while with the the Manson family, and rips open his shirt and he's got the scars from when they tortured him and all this shit that made no sense, but I still loved it because it was a great movie. But like, it's very divisive because you look at the serial trading card, the serial killer trading card sets, and they exist. If you guys didn't know about this, and he's in there. He's got his own trading card for serial killers, and he's listed in so many places as being serial killers, but in a lot of other places, a lot of people say no. And I've literally witnessed people get into like fucking like tearing each other down arguments over this. And I first of all, I'm not sure why they're that angry with each other arguing over whether he's a serial killer or not, because that's fucking weird, even by my standards. So it's weird.
I don't know if Manson was a serial killer more so than just a mass murderer, because he did admit to killing people after he was in prison. So I suspect that he probably did some killing himself, but I don't know if what he did would be considered serialized more so than just mass casualties.
And just proving the power he had over people. He was so obsessed with his charisma and like how many people he could get to do his bidding. And the time that he stayed with, what was the Beatles guy that they stayed at his place for? The whole family stayed at his ranch for a while.
Lennon?
No, it was like their producer, or maybe it was the Beach Boys.
Well, Well, he believed that the Beatles spoke to him directly through their lyrics. Like
I'm gonna look that up real quick.
he thought the White Album in '68 were full of messages from the band to him. So he believed that he had a connection to the Beatles. But you're right. I swear there was, because Helter Skelter. He talks about that, about Helter Skelter. Was nothing but messages to him from Paul McCartney at one point.
Yeah, it's
But
interesting.
it says, I mean, at his trial, though, like just straight up at his trial, it was accepted that Manson never even expressly ordered the murders, and he did not personally touch a single person. And this was at his the trial where he was convicted. It was this all came out into play, and it wasn't until after he got his sentence officially that he started over time claiming more of it was him doing it. But during the trial and all this stuff, it was he didn't do any of it by hand, and he never per se directly said you have to go and kill this person. It was all done through like weird brainwashing, lots and lots of drugs, and weird forms of suggestion. Never outright commands.
Just like a cult leader.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was basically.
I was wrong. I was thinking it was Brian Wilson, but it was actually Dennis Wilson, who was the drummer for the Beach Boys that picked the Manson family up hitchhiking and just let him hang out and live with him for a while. He's just like, yeah, sure, live here.
Oh yeah,
why not?
I did know about that. I was trying to figure out, like, I knew he had a connection to the Beatles through that way, but I didn't remember that part. But yeah, I do know about the Beach Boys connection.
Yeah, the Beach Boys. I thought it was Brian Wilson, and it was his brother. But
gotcha. Yeah, we've been alerted that it is time for commercials, because that is a thing we do now. So this is your time to, you should stick around and watch the commercials because they're awesome. But if you got to get a drink at the bathroom, whatever you got to do, you got like what, 2 minutes? I think we're up to now. 2 minutes.
Greetings and shabibans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Well, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductibus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Dorking Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brick.
You can listen to Retro Reductibus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
Welcome back to Legends by Night. Forgot what you were watching. If you did, how dare you?
Shame on you.
Yes, indeed.
Where are we at again?
I mean, I'm in Ohio in this basement. I mean,
I
where are
think
you?
in the closet.
The multi-level murder layer?
I'm below
Cool.
Rob, but he's not here tonight.
I'm in the disappointments room above Rob. He's busy working on some editing right now.
Yep. You can probably hear him
He's
tapping away up there. Well, we had just been talking about the Charles Manson, whether he was a killer or not, and kind of leaning more towards we knew he was a cult mastermind. I mean, that's for damn sure. I'm sure we'll do episodes about cults because that'll get, if it's not on the wheel, it'll get on the wheel eventually too. We got lots of topics for that wheel. Lots of topics for that. I think this is going to be a two-parter though, because I want to talk more about some specific serial killers and some things, but I do want to spend a good amount of time talking about people that have had personal experiences in one way or another with him that we can bring on, kind of organize that a little bit better, and also talk a little bit more about the victim side of things, because that deserves, discussion as well. I don't want to only talk about, the serial killers. I want to talk about some of the victims as well, but that's a lot to cover with only 45 minutes left. So I think we will do a part 2, just like we did with the vampires, but I'm not looking to do parts 3, 4, and 5 of things. I think if there's things that we can talk about that are more than 2 parts, we can put them back on the wheel for another time to kind of keep our shows, moving.
Yeah. Do you mind if I do a real quick? There's no way I'm going to get this person to come on because I haven't seen him for 20 years or better. But a friend of mine who had an encounter with Ted Bundy, actually.
Can we do that on part 2?
Sure, that's fine.
Because like the whole victim side and the encounter thing, I think that could be its own special part, because that stuff I feel like that deserves actually more reverence than us just talking about the serial killers.
Okay.
And I'd like to make that super special.
I was just going to tie it in with how people, even modern day, weren't able to keep up with everything that was, going on as far as stuff went. But yeah, we can do that later.
Yeah. I mean, I want you to say it. I just, trying to package it together on the fly, and you know how we are around here. But yeah, I mean, what's some other names, guys? Like some other people you'd like to Pyle, come on, buddy. Other than the Muffin Man down here, you're all laid back in your chair. You're starting to look like the Muffin Man over there.
Oh,
dude, I seriously have had a wild weekend going into watching Devastation today. So my brain was like, okay, well, we can go with all these serial killers that absolutely we have heard and this and that. And then I start getting thinking, I was like, the Muffin Man is the number one thing that kids are taught, that song, but no one had any idea about it. So I started looking up all these serial killers, and you know what? Some of these serial killers that we know and we talk about a lot are not even on the top murder list. Their numbers are low versus some of them.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with personalities and what they did to people rather than how many.
Right. But, my thought was, kind of looking at this and that, in the one that did the clown. I can't.
Casey?
Yep, Casey. That's
Gacy. John Wayne Gacy.
Yep. I mean, that was just something that the truth just sometimes terrifies people, and then you read something like that, and then you guys go into haunted places and you see a clown, and the reality is that could happen again.
He portrayed Pogo the clown, and when he went to jail, he started doing paintings of clowns, and you could buy them. There was a website way back 15, 20 years ago that was called the Morbid Curiosity Shop, and they sold a lot of serial killer memorabilia, stuff that was made by killers or cards or anything written by killers that they'd gotten out of the prison. People would go ahead and buy stuff from them. And yeah, your background makes me keep thinking of the smiley face killer. So I'm just
Casey's body count was only 33, and the list I got here, he was only number 8 on the top 10.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's not so much about the numbers that they're racking up, but about the effect that they're having on the community at large.
That's true.
The ripple effect, the effect that they're having on the community, and the ripple effect as it spreads outwards is actually greater because of the fear that they're causing more so than the actual numbers of the people that they're killing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and you, Ron, are set up to talk about somebody in particular.
Indeed.
Toucan Son of Sam?
Yeah.
Toucan Son of Sam.
Well, I did actually do some research on Son of Sam, but I thought of him because of this character behind me, Toucan Son of Sam, from the Green Jello serial killer video. Yes, this is a VHS.
Yep.
And yes, it is signed by Bill Manspeaker, that plays Marshall Stacks, that founded Green Jello.
Mm-hmm. And it's still around, keeping Green Jello alive today.
Yes, it is. And they actually just came out with a new song, but that's
off
topic. Murder Bus, I think, is the name of the song, so maybe it's not so off topic.
It's not.
But with Son of Sam, who was captured, David Berkowitz, who was from Yonkers, he committed murders in basically all 5 boroughs of New York. I think that was premeditated. That was planned because it allowed him the opportunity to continue his killing spree without people really catching on, because they were so far spread out that it took him a while to find the pattern. But he did have a pattern, and it was young brunette females. And supposedly that pattern was because of his mother, his hatred for his mother, who was a brunette female, and he was conceived out of wedlock and most likely in the backseat of a car, which was his motive for how he killed, his modus operandi. Right. He shot people, couples, in their cars. He's not really high up there in terms of numbers. He shot 13 people and killed 6. So it's not a lot, but this happened over the course of a year before he got caught, back in from July 1976 to about August of 1977. He was in the papers before he started sending in the letters that were signed Son of Sam. He was known as the 40 caliber killer because he used a 40 caliber handgun, and it took cops a while to match ballistics in order to figure out, any leads on that.
Right.
So now we've got, once they caught him, they figured out what the motive was because of his hatred toward his mother and the fact that she was basically a whore.
Yeah.
And the reason why he was killing people in their cars, because that is, a direct connection to his mother and how he was conceived. But when they did find him, his whole apartment was just like littered, decorated with all of this graffiti, weird writings, and basically saying that Son of Sam is talking to me, telling me to kill these people. Mm-hmm. But turns out Son of Sam was actually a dog. Mm-hmm. And the dog was owned by a guy named Sam. And it was his neighbor. And he thought the dog was talking to him, commanding him to go out and kill all of these people. So the question remains whether or not was he doing all of this premeditative to set up an insanity plea first, or was he really crazy?
And that's a good point, man. I think there's been a lot of murderers that have, kind of established their insanity before or during, while they were committing the murders, just for the end game to get off on the insanity plea after doing pretty much what they wanted instead of going to prison. So there's evidence of this everywhere. There's even the most famous "the devil made me do it" argument. I remember that. When I was growing up, when I was really little, that was like everywhere. The whole devil made me do it thing. They even made a movie out of that recently. The third Conjuring movie actually tied into that.
Yeah, so I kind of wonder, because how can a man conceive of this plot to kill people? He's so methodical in how he does things. He's got a type. He's got a method. All of his kills are basically the same. So he's thought all of that out, which makes me wonder, how insane can he be if he's able to spread out his kills across the 5 boroughs so people couldn't catch on as quickly? Right. That takes some thought. That takes some planning to say, well, what if I do this? And then I can, kill more people over time because it's going to take them longer to connect the murders. He had to think all of that out. So I'm of the opinion that there's a good possibility he thought, if I'm going to do this, I need, to set up an alibi or to set up my insanity, well in advance. So he could have planned all that stuff out. He had plenty of time to do it because it took place over a year.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting to think about. Like, again, that feeds into more like, how interesting the psychology of all this different stuff is. Like, Dell's face when you said his mom was a whore, like, he made his face. And here's what it reminded me of when the original Rock and Sock Connection tag team, which was The Rock and, Mick Foley as Mankind, they were going to split up as a tag team, and Mick didn't want to let The Rock go. So he set up this whole special evening where he was going to bring all these people from The Rock's passed out. And one of the people he brought out was Rock's ex-girlfriend, which turned out really well. To which Mankind looks at him and goes, how was I supposed to know your ex-girlfriend was a whore? And that's what was going through my head, but not until Dell made the face about the mom whore thing.
I didn't even know I made a face.
Oh, yeah, you were just like, it was like a brief second. It was the simplest reaction.
But all that being said, all that being said, I really do think that Berkowitz did have a problem. I think that he was overwhelmed by the guilt, which is what caused him to start writing the letters to the newspapers in the first place. I think he really wanted to be caught so someone would stop him.
Yeah, there have been a couple of different people who've done that in the past. And there's the truck driver who was leaving messages in bathrooms across the nation that was like, please help me. Please stop me. I'm, like leaving evidence everywhere he was to try to get stopped. And that's another thing to bring up. I can't remember currently. I haven't checked the statistics over the past couple of years since COVID hit, but there are a lot of active serial killers in the United States, and a majority of them are truck drivers or people who go on long drives quite a bit or do a lot of traveling because they don't kill in their hometown. You don't shit where you eat. You go up and I'm going to be driving on this interstate. You kill somebody here, drop their body over there, and you're clean. Unless you leave a lot of evidence behind, it's hard to post somebody down on that because there are so many people driving those different routes and doing different stuff. And that's even when the body finally gets found. How many years is it between when it's happened and when it isn't?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of interesting things. Interstate I-75, it goes all the way north and all the way south. And there's a series of hotels, semi-lots, all kinds of things where murderers, serial killers, sex traffickers, drug trafficking, it's like a huge corridor, the I-75 corridor, all the way up and down, because it's so easy to pop off an exit really quick, do what you got to do, and get back on the exit and be in another state or 2 or 3 states before anyone even knows anything's happened at all.
I think that kind of leads into the Zodiac killer a little bit. There are theories that say the Zodiac killer was not one person, but a cult of people. And that kind of like with Berkowitz sending letters into the newspaper, Zodiac Killer sent letters into the newspaper as well, but I think mostly to toy with the cops, not so much to be caught, because they just wanted to prove that they were so much smarter than the police.
Yeah.
Not so much a rationalization of this is why I'm doing it.
And having the like very distinct, they sent Zodiac was the one who did the 2 stamps on every envelope that were upside down, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
I believe so.
And a really weird. I met somebody online playing World of Warcraft who their character was Ed Gein's wife, and they were playing undead, and so that was their character. Wow. I was running around on my undead, which was Mary Jane Kelly, because I named all of my undead characters after people who were famous for the way that they died.
Right.
And so we'd formed this bond, and like they sent me a condolence letter once when my aunt died that they put the 2 stamps upside down on it just to be like, sorry about your aunt, serial killer friends unite. I'm just like, okay. Awesome.
I can't imagine anybody wanting to choose a name like Ed Gein's wife. That's hilarious.
It was, well, he was running around too. There was one named it, and people kept asking, "What does edge in mean? What does edge in mean?"
Edge in.
Yeah.
Edge in. Wow.
I was like, okay, yeah.
I have to briefly go Allied After Dark for a moment, so I'll give you guys at home a moment or two to close your ears, and I'll give you the thumbs up when you're good. You know, in case kids are listening, which I fucking hope not. So brief moment. Okay, I'm launching into this. So Ed Gein's wife, when she said "eat me out," she really meant "eat me out." and then, all right, you guys are clear to come back and listen now. Okay,
I don't think Ed Gein was ever married, though. He was a social recluse.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know his personal life. Maybe he got married in a beautiful secret ceremony at his home, in his cabin, you know, in the woods.
Well, if he did it himself, and she probably was not alive when he did it.
And it's interesting with him because he was more of a ghoul than a killer, you know.
But like,
and
inspired the most amount of.
Are based off of him.
I was about to say, inspired the most amount of horror properties of any serial killer ever.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of his house and the fact that he was doing things to these bodies that basically hunters would do to animals.
Yeah. And if you're really thinking about it, if you stop and really honestly think about it, humans, we are animals. So what he was doing really, I hate to say this because this is going to sound really screwed up no matter how I say it, but what he was doing was not all that odd if you really stop and think about it from the concept of he's hunting, eating, and making everything he needs, furniture, tools, and all, to not waste anything that he hunts.
Yeah,
so if
that makes
you're
sense.
Gonna be a cannibal, following like the Native American guidelines of hunting, where you use everything. He was self-sufficient. I think the problem there was more, from the victim angle, like the victims he chose. Like maybe if he'd gone Dexter and gone like he kills other murderers and like terrible people, then I think we would view him a lot differently.
No, he was mostly killing women though, because he had a mother complex too.
Oh, we're getting there. Don't worry, because we're about to go through the list of Ed Gein. Because Bloody Face was one of only. Honestly, Bloody Face might have been the least important of the people that pop culture turned him into.
Norman Bates was based off of him. Texas Chainsaw Massacres were
2 characters, both Junior and Grandpa. Because and if you really pay attention to the whole franchise, Ed Gein was Grandpa in a lot of really fucked up ways, but also a lot of what Junior was, aka Leatherface, had the other side of Gein's qualities.
And he was so, everybody knew he was a little odd,
Yeah, but he was quiet and he didn't cause any problems in the town, so nobody knew that he was doing all this stuff.
No, he was a babysitter. Like there were people who sent their kids to stay at his house and be babysat, and he would tell them stories about when he was off at war and all this stuff, and like
he was kind of a community killer, like really.
Yeah, they were weird stories. Like the kids would come home and be like, "Yeah, he had shrunken heads and stuff."
Oh yeah, there was also Buffalo Bill, Sons of the Lambs. And let's not forget the actual Ed Gein movie where Kane Hodder played fucking Ed Gein and showed all these things that Dell's talking about right now. Like, he would help people carry groceries. Like,
Mhm.
he didn't hurt anyone in the town. I mean, it was it's such a weird psychological aspect of this guy. Like, he was a hunter that used every part like a hunter or a Native American practice would, but he also consumed everything. Like, he did not waste things. So what he was doing was, to him, a normal thing to do.
But he also had a type 2. And most of the women that he killed, were basically surrogates for his mother.
True.
Yeah. He's also basically, I think, the first killer that they use on Hannibal, the television series with Mads Mikkelsen, is based different victimology, but same thing. Like, use every part of.
When you go to a grocery store, do you look at your meat before you buy it? Do you prefer certain cuts of certain meats? I mean, so when you think about Ed Gein and the way and his victim profile, how is that really different than, staking out the deer you want to kill because you think it's going to be tastier, or looking at, I like more my meat more marbleized, or this and that. Like, he was basically his type was also based on, his eating habits.
He liked
More than
marmalade.
just the psychological aspect. It was also what was going to be the good meat and what would make the best, furniture and clothing and things like that too. So it went beyond your normal, like profiling for a serial killer in like a really weird way.
Now, the interesting thing is that when they did finally capture Ed Gein and they sent him to prison, he was a model prisoner. Like, he never gave anybody any problems, and by all reports, he was a very friendly person. And I think there was at one point where he came up for probation and he didn't want to go.
No.
He was much happier in prison.
Yep. He felt that, like, that's kind of, he understood that what he was doing was perceived by, as wrong by other people. And he also knew that if he went back out into the world,
he would do it again.
He would resume it because he didn't. It's not that he didn't understand that from other perspectives that it was wrong, because he understood that. But to him, at his core, the concept of what he was doing still made logical sense to him. And it's, again, weirdly hard to talk someone out of that logic when it's such on that weird border of being logical, other than the fact that you shouldn't fucking murder and eat people. I mean, that's,
it's the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. Gein was a sociopath because he wasn't premeditating any of this stuff. He was just doing, basically what his nature dictated to him. I don't think he put a lot of great thought. Like you said, he was using everything that he killed,
He could, yeah.
I don't think that he put a lot of great thought into it. Not like, Berkowitz that planned out everything.
Right. I mean, he even used things that he couldn't, like, make things out of as fertilizer for his fucking garden. I mean, he, like, was a one-stop body shop at this point in time, man. Like, it's odd.
And then we go to the complete opposite. I'm going to jump back in time here a little bit, and I'm also going to say fuck the Habsburgs again, because of that we don't know too much of what actually happened. But with Elizabeth Bathory, there's so many stories about her, and we will never know what exactly happened because the Habsburgs,
the actual truth.
After her husband died, they tried to basically get her out of court because they owed her a lot of money, or they owed her husband a lot of money. And but she was known for bringing in young girls, preferably girls of royalty and preferably virgins, and using their blood because she thought that it made her younger. But there were tales of just body parts and dead people strewn along the roads around her. They didn't bother burying them. They threw them everywhere. It ranges between 20s to hundreds of girls killed.
Jenny mentioned previously, equating murderers to vampire lore. Elizabeth Bathory might be the most tied into vampire lore of any serial killer of literally all time.
Yeah, and I mean, you go with Vlad Tepes and his staking people. One of the things that she has been accused of anyway, and again, we'll never know, but was taking out some of her maids during the middle of winter. And we're talking like she was in the Hungarian Transylvanian area, so it's very cold there, and having her servants basically pose them and then pour water over them slowly.
She said slowly, and then she slowed down
And then she
into a
froze.
freeze.
Yeah.
It's like
So it's not just me
slowly.
this time.
Slowly
will-
freezing
will-
to death.
Yeah, she will slowly make her way back to the show.
Apparently. Yeah, I think at what's
Holy shit, there's 2 Dells.
Oh no. What happened here?
How
That's weird.
did you do that?
I unlogged as I was trying to explain what she did with them, and my window crashed. So
She slowed down so much, she froze, and her future self took her place. That's what just
Wow.
happened.
yeah.
You were saying the word slowly when it all happened. So like it
Oh, well, she would slowly pour water over them until they froze as statues, and then she would sit out in her garden and like have tea and meals while she was surrounded by frozen people as statues in her garden. So
There was a story, I think it actually predates Bram Stoker's Dracula, about a female vampire, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. I want to say it starts with a C. Help me out here, Raz. You're
female serial killer starts with a C.
not a serial killer, a vampire.
Oh. Shit. I mean, you got me on this one, man. Like there's.
I have to look it up because I studied it in
usually
college.
Countess something, and Countess starts with a C as well.
Carmilla.
Carmilla, yes. Thank you.
Okay. There we go.
God, I don't know why I had a hard time thinking of that. I studied it in college, and when I think of Elizabeth Bathory, that's usually the connection that I make is to Carmilla.
Carmilla the vampire.
Mm-hmm. It's a short story. It's worth a read.
Yeah,
and I think it's different because you don't normally hear stories about female vampires.
Yeah, she was apparently it was first published as a serial in The Dark Blue, and it was narrated as a young woman preyed upon by a female vampire named Carmilla, later revealed to be Mircalla, which is a play on the word there, and the Countess Karnstein. The character is a prototype example of the lesbian vampire expressing romantic desires towards the protagonist. So
yeah, I think we could call Janie the Dark Blue.
Yep. Jenny's our librarian vampire.
Yep.
Why do you think libraries don't have windows?
She
A lot of
hangs
them
out
don't
in
have
cemeteries.
like the stacks don't have windows, man. That's where Jenny's like going to the books. Did you fucking return that book?
It's not like I'm not surrounded by books now, is
I
it?
know, she just literally reached out of thin air from a graveyard and just materialized the books. That's the kind of magic fucking librarian she is. And speaking of serial killers, Amina just joined us.
Hey guys.
Hey.
What a segue.
And my teddy bear.
Well, no, okay, so I was writing. I was trying to be good and stay writing, and I knew what the show was about. But Raz and I have talked about serial killers till like 5 a.m. So
many nights, yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I should stay out of it. I don't want to keep us on. And then he was like, you should be here. I was like, damn it. Okay.
Like not wanting to talk about serial killers because you like to talk about serial killers is a dumb reason not to talk about
serial killers.
Right? Like,
well, it's kind of scary how much I know. Like,
and that's
Raz and I
exactly what a serial killer would say.
Yeah. Like Raz and I have had the debate. We are both like one step away from being the next serial killer. So, yeah.
You know what keeps me
I
from
wouldn't
being a serial
admit
killer
that.
for real? Like, listen, I do films. I'm a hunt actor. I write terrible things. And this, my friends, that's what keeps me from becoming a serial killer right there. It's the herb.
I saw a Dilbert cartoon, and
Dilbert.
yeah, and Dogbert. Like Dilbert did something stupid, and Dogbert says, "I swear, the only thing that keeps me from being a serial killer is that I detest manual labor."
There's a great place you can go. There's a quiz you can take, and it's located on a bunch of different websites at this point. A friend of mine gave it to me because she was working with a friend who was a profiler, and was like, "Oh, my friend would love this." And it's a test where you only get to see pictures, but it's serial killer or computer programmer, and you have to go through and say which one you think each person is. And like, she gave it to me in paper, and she watched me, so I couldn't like do any like sneaky look it up on the internet or anything like that. But I got 100%, and I also was like writing out bios of the ones like, oh, and this is David Berkowitz, this is John Wayne Gacy. But if you look on the internet, you can just put serial killers or computer programmers, and so many different places have published it. It's a fun little one to go through.
Speaking of that, go ahead.
So which one is Jim's Cabin based on?
Dead Game. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's microfiction that I write sometimes and haven't caught back up with it. It's like a whole series of weird things I do. So I found this really cool website. I'm up to bring this. Let me share my screen real quick. So we're going to do something that we've never done in a show before because it seems fun as soon as my shit works. Work. Hold on. I have tip buttons. Okay. I found it. All right. It's which famous serial killer are you? It's a short quiz. So we're going to look at this. I have to pick a city. I'm gonna go New Orleans because we're talking about vampires a lot. My favorite season personally is the fall. What do I want for dinner? And I noticed that Long Pig is not on here, and I feel like Pyle would be disappointed in me if I chose salad. So I'm gonna go with. I've been eating pizza a lot for dinner lately. Let's go pizza. How would I kill my victims? I mean, I'm a slasher, so I'm going to go stabbing because chainsawing is not an option. Pick a college major. Ooh. And of course, mine is not even in here, which is very sad.
This is easy for you.
I mean, this is a sad one because it's not here.
What are the choices? Because they're really small on my screen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Business, religious studies, gender and sexuality studies, history, and political science, which none of them actually,
it would be music or history for him.
Yeah, music or history. We'll go music. That works.
I already know who you're going to be.
What is my best quality? You guys are going to have to answer this because I don't know. It's intelligence, charming personality, passion, leadership skills, or free spirit.
Passion.
Free spirit.
Somebody be a tiebreaker here.
I think you're a free spirit.
I hear passion and free spirit. We need something else.
Here's the thing. I have to go with the passion thing because anything, yes, you're a free spirit, but like anything that you want to do, you kind of throw yourself into 100%.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's leadership.
I'd go with passion.
Two passions.
Which is greater, his spirit or the fact that he's a free spirit or his passion? Because I would think that the passion is the result of his free spirit.
Okay, Dale, I need you to weigh in because I've got two leaderships. I've heard a passion. I've heard a free spirit.
I'm going for your passion.
All right. I can still get behind that.
You can't look at the private chat right now.
I'm not. Don't worry. I'm looking at the actual the quiz. I'll go passion. Okay. Well, let's go passion. I just won the lottery. What am I going to do with my money? Let's see. Pay off my student loans? Probably not. Dream vacation? Possibly. Buy a lavish new home? No, because even if I was rich, I wouldn't buy anything lavish. I'm going to say share it with friends, honestly. I don't even need to go through the rest of this. It would be share it with my friends. A decade. Like I'm not going to pick the 90s. Come on. Okay, if I was arrested for murder, I would plead not guilty, but eventually confess. Plead guilty, but try to get an insanity defense. Flee the country and risk greater punishment. Plead guilty, but claim self-defense. Plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Plead not guilty, or plead guilty.
Plead not guilty.
No, I would definitely plead guilty. I would 100% tell on myself.
He would say he did it. He would say he did it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why.
I'll go with the insanity defense because that does work for me. I mean, it's my middle name. I mean, I'm fucking crazy. If I killed someone, what would I do with the body? Dump it far from home? No. cut it up and hide the pieces in my home.
Yes.
Oh, hide it in my home or leave it at the crime scene. I would not do any of these, but if I had to pick up one, it would be probably cut it up and hide the pieces in my home.
You would turn it into a prop to haunt.
Yeah. I guess that's partly my home. Okay, calculating results. I'm Ted Bundy.
I was wrong.
Who did you guess?
I guess the X-Men in New Orleans because you chose New Orleans and you had the music and the passion. Yeah. So I was like...
It says you got Ted Bundy, which we can talk about him, I guess, in a second. Ted Bundy is one of the most infamous serial killers in history between 1974 and 1978. Bundy abducted and murdered more than 30 women in 7 different states. Though shortly before his electric chair execution in 1989, he hinted that his number of victims was in the triple digits. You can learn more about Ted Bundy by visiting thecrimemuseum.org, etc., etc. So, yeah, I did not think I would get Ted Bundy, but here we are. I guess I'm a Ted Bundy kind of guy.
Raz Bundy.
What's really horrible is I can see it. Like, really, I can see it.
I mean, Ted Bundy was a very passionate guy. He was a fast talker. He was charismatic.
Just like Raz.
I don't think I'm that charismatic, like not Ted Bundy level, but
you are more
charismatic
than you believe.
So now, not only do I need to start a cult, I'm convinced that maybe I need to look into serial killing as a future job for me. Like that could be lucrative.
I don't think you really get paid for serial killing unless you're an assassin.
I don't know, man. In the first movie I ever did, Slasher's Gone Wild, my character was paid to be a serial killer because it was his job to keep certain areas of the outdoor world clean of litter. That was his whole motif. So in that movie, my character got paid for being a serial killer.
Completely.
And his thing was litter bugs and cheerleaders. Like that's what he killed. So I mean, I don't know. There could be money in it. We just have to get some kind of company out there that wants to hire folks like us. That's all.
See if you can get a sponsorship from Ginsu or Craftsman.
Craftsman, yeah.
I just took my test and I am David Berkowitz.
Nice.
If you guys at home want to take the test, take it and then send us a message and tell us who you got. And if you can give us a screenshot of you taking the quiz, the part 2 of this show, at the very beginning, because that just sounds like a fun thing to do.
Gonna link that in the comments so that you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have that in my search history, considering who I work for.
Yeah, well,
I got nothing to lose. Let's go.
I've already been flagged by the FBI for my search history in the past. Why not? I feel like if I don't search up these things, they'd be more worried at this point.
I mean, I suppose now I could say, well, I'm a professional writer, so I'm just doing research.
One of the other quizzes, search history. Is this person a serial killer or an author?
Right.
Yeah, right.
That'd be a
How do you make a bomb?
But Ted Bundy was also a fucking kleptomaniac, which led to a lot of weird situations for him. One of the first movies I remember them making about Ted Bundy, back in the 90s, there's this actual scene where he's driving his convertible and the top is down and he's looking around to see if anybody's paying attention, and he just goes up in this little plaza and steals some potted plants and throws them in the back of his car and drives away. Potted plants, the pots and all. As a kid, I'm like, what the fuck does he need the plants for? My mom was like, well, he was a kleptomaniac. He would just steal random things. I'm like, but people everywhere that just watched him jump out of a convertible and steal potted plants, and he buckles them in seatbelts in the back. I'm like, do they remind him of his children he didn't have, or I mean, is this
just potted plants? Nobody's going to miss them. Nobody's really going to care. It's a thing, and in the greater scheme of things, it's very minor compared to other things that you could be doing that they didn't know about at the time.
Well, I mean that's true. It was just such a weird thing that they globbed on for that movie. Was just that he was stealing potted plants. I mean, he stole other shit too, but the potted plants thing would just to this day really fucks with my head a little bit.
I never.
That's what does it.
Yep.
When I was little, the things that okay, when they put the newspapers in the front of before you can get to the cash registers in grocery stores, I just thought they were free. and little things like that when I was little, because it was just like, well, how you have to walk in, get it, then go in through other sets of doors to the store, then walk all the way around. So obviously they're free. Otherwise, they wouldn't put them here next to the other free flyers and stuff.
Right.
So I probably was a bit of a klepto when it came to newspapers when I was a kid because I didn't realize you had to pay for them.
I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't either. You're right. Like all those little trade papers, like you know, find a new car, all that shit. That was all free.
And the stuff that you said, and people, I just don't get. I mean, before they had CCTV, how people kept from like all the stuff when they put out like big pallets of mulch, you know, outside of like gardening centers and stuff. How did people not just go up and steal them? Or the pumpkins when they had so many pumpkins out in front of the stores. What kept people from doing that? And what kept people who were stupid like me from just thinking, "Oh, that's free. I can just grab one."
The honor system.
Yeah, the honor system. Yeah.
Well, the honor system was a much bigger thing back then than it is now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not so much in the lawless time when Dell was growing up, but you know.
Yeah. I'm
Back-
old.
Well, the 90s, man, it was like Wild Wild West, I guess.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jenny.
Cassie would take Minnie Mouses, and it took me about 4 times before I figured it out. She had sold them because we would buy her similar ones because she had 4 similar ones. I just thought she brought it in from the car, and then when we get it out, they all had different dresses.
There you go.
That's so cute. I love that.
I think the first thing I ever took as a kid was like an Astro Pop because it was right at the register, and I just looked at it. I was like, "Oh, I want a sucker," and it was in front of my mom. It was in front of the cashier. Like, I didn't hide it. I grabbed it and I put it in my mouth. I didn't think about it. Like, I just did not think about it. I assumed that the adults were aware that I was doing it. I was right here. If it wasn't okay, they would have said something, and it seemed okay. And I walked out with it, and we get in the car. My mom was like, "Where'd you get that?" I'm like, I was right in front of you. You both looked at me like, and then I had to go into the store and apologize, which I did because I found out it was wrong or whatever. But like, there were adults present, and they watched me do it. But then I don't know. It was a very confusing time as a child, and I learned that I had to ask before I did things like that. Which, of course, I learned my lesson. As a child.
Obviously, Ted Bundy knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
it was wrong.
He wasn't taking a free paper, or you're grabbing a sucker in front of some adults. He was just stealing potted plants and buckling them like children into his car and driving away with them.
I think his was more like, not so much as tempting fate, but it was just kind of like a big fuck you to fate because he thought he could get away with anything.
And he did. For a really long time.
Way longer than he should have. Like, stupid longer just because he ran his mouth and people listened to it.
And he was a rather attractive man. That, I mean,
And I think Ted Bundy on that quiz comes up a lot for people because I picked like 4 different choices different from Raz, and I still get Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy?
Ted Bundy?
Yeah, Ted Bundy.
Easter on the mind, I see.
I'm not gonna lie. I got Ted Bundy too, and like my major was religious studies, and I had a whole bunch of different answers. I got Ted Bundy too. So
Are we the Bundy cult? Is it a new cult called the Bundys?
Apparently, we're all Ted Bundy.
Yeah, I think it kind of limited us when you have to choose a decade and there were only 4.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering how many. Like, I miss being able to do those quizzes on MySpace because at the end you could pull it up, look at what the HTML was, and see what your options would have been.
Yep.
And so if it was like there are a whole 3 whopping options to this 20 question quiz, you could then go in and type out an answer that wasn't one of the answers that was there and have that show up as what your answer was.
Yep.
And it would be really.
How did you get that? People are like trying for ages to figure it out, and you're just like, you can't fucking read.
I had so much fun with that. It was just like, which Barbie are you?
All right, so the question is, did you go with the you went with the 90s, right? Because you were a child of the 90s.
I did. I was a teenager of the 90s.
What about you, Raz? You chose the 90s.
I chose the 90s. Yeah, I was a child in the 80s, and like the beginning of the 90s, I was still a child.
So my question is, do you choose the decade in which you were a minor, or do you choose the decade in which you were first coming into adulthood in your 20s? Because that's when you were experiencing freedom.
I chose the 1830s and still got Ted Bundy. So,
but I don't know. For me, like, I think that the 90s was kind of the perfect time to be a serial killer because, especially if you were young, because no one give a fuck about children in the 80s and 90s. Like, really, they didn't. We could have been all serial killers and no one would have noticed.
I just chose the decade that I enjoyed the most. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to go back to the 1830s. I remember Salman Rushdie was asked this question, like, if you could live at any time period, where would you go? And he was like, the modern one, because we have hygiene.
Yeah, right. That's the thing with the 1830s. They didn't really have very good hygiene. People didn't live that long because they were all, getting sick and dying.
But here's the other part of that, and the reason why I chose the 1830s. Okay, so this quiz is asking me what kind of serial killer I would be. Logistically speaking, the 1830s are perfect for me. Number one, I'm a female. Nobody would think it was me in the first place.
True.
Second of all, lack of DNA evidence. Let's go. Number three, like, just the ability to disappear, because back then everybody was so focused on, survival or social perfection or anything. Anybody that had to deviate to kill somebody, you had to know how to move through society and not be seen. And it's so much easier to do in a society where everybody is internally monologuing themselves to try and appear perfect. So they're stressing out and shit, let me go. It's fine. I could thrive there as a serial killer. Just saying.
Yeah, those are valid points, though. I mean,
yeah, they lacked air conditioning and clean water.
You know what? That's fine.
They didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have electricity.
Cool. Let me go back and eliminate.
But they also did not have the internet, and you could have gotten away with a lot more because they did not have the internet.
Okay. I just had a thought process.
Oh God. It hurt.
And my ADD has been overrunning anything on this conversation, and I've zoned out so many times listening to everything and could not get anything in my brain. What happens if you were a serial killer for the Amish?
Clippity clop bang, clippity clop bang.
That's a drive-by.
No, I'm being serious.
I mean, that's a good point.
Their whole lives they try not all Amishes, but they try handling everything themselves. They don't like to report to stuff. They don't this and that.
I actually know someone that would know the answer to this. He lives out in Pennsylvania. He's Amish through marriage. He's the storyteller of their whole group out there, and he raises goats and grows weed. His name is Amish Raz, and I discovered him earlier, last year. And I feel like if anyone would know the answer to this, it would be Amish Raz. I'll have to ask him to get back to you.
That's not where I was going with that.
I can't imagine that, there would be an Amish serial killer because most of them are fairly devoted to their lifestyle.
And a number of them are also angry.
Has there ever been an Amish serial killer?
Well, there's been a Amish that he has been convicted of hate crime because he actually chopped off the beards of many, many Amish. And that happened here in Ohio. Once again, the home of the weird.
There was an Amish serial killer, though.
I mean, you have to think some of them that don't come back from, what is it, Rumspringa? Or whatever they call it?
Rumspringa, yeah.
So you have to think that somewhere in that group of those who did not return was somebody who, despite growing up in that environment and everything else, just was a serial killer and they left so they could. Like, I've thought about stuff like this a lot.
Well, that's an interesting plot for a story. I mean, and maybe you should write it.
I don't do well writing horror.
She says that, but then turns out some great shit. But to answer your question, yes, Eli Stutzman Jr. was in fact an Amish serial killer. He was a gay Amish man who ended up becoming HIV positive, committed robberies, a number of things like that. And here's the weird tie-in. His murders happened between 77 and 85 in Ohio, Texas, and Nebraska.
The fuck is up with Ohio, man?
He was sentenced to 40
Ohio.
years.
Honestly, Ohio is where God said nay and the devil said,
So
"Hey,
was he Amish?
No, he was born and raised Amish and still lived in Amish communities. And everything. Are you alive? Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Are you sure?
There's
my ADD right there.
I've sneezed so many times in class once that everybody just stopped, looked at me, and clapped.
So, like I was saying, he wasn't sentenced until 89 in Texas because it all caught up to him by then. He was actually paroled. He was supposed to get 40 years. He was paroled in 2005, though, but committed suicide in 2007. But yeah, he was a gay Amish man.
Yeah, there's a meme I've seen that it says something to the effect that a majority of the astronauts that have gone into space have been from Ohio. What is it about your state that makes people want to leave the planet?
I mean, number one in alien sightings. When you see enough UFOs, buddy, you're just gonna say fuck it, I want to go to space. I mean, you only get abducted so many times where you just need to see where the abductions are coming from, you know?
Right.
So this guy was Amish and he killed other Amishes?
Yeah, including some of his lovers who were also Amish. And he did it all with a gun. A gun was his instrument of choice.
Well, that takes all the fun out of it.
There's documentaries about this man. Yep.
Speaking of
I never knew about that.
Belle Gunness, if we're going to go back to female serial killers, and not quite the period that you chose, Amina, but in the 1880s and forward, she is one of the most prolific female serial killers in history. They tie between 14 to 40 plus murders to her. And what she did, she was a servant first and then went on to work as a butcher's assistant, cutting up animal carcasses, and then went off and got herself a farm in Indiana and killed off her husband and started putting out personal ads. And people would come and either stay with her or come with her to marry her. And she would just keep killing them off and burying the bodies and inviting in the next person to, oh, look, wealthy widow with a farm to take care of and all this kind of stuff. And people would just keep answering her ads and then dying. And they actually don't know what happened to her because they thought she died and then they never found proof of it. So she might have gotten away scot-free in the very end.
Oh, and as Dell outlines my future, thank you.
So
it's not a bed and breakfast, it's a dead and breakfast.
And I'm going to bring this up and see what you guys think. What about Dr. Kevorkian?
That's an interesting one.
That's
see what I mean?
He doesn't really qualify.
Yeah, see, we were
He was assisted suicide. Not so much serial killer because those people were already wanting to die.
There's a very fine line to be made here, a very fine argument. Kevorkian, while yes, did help assist, how many people with assisted suicide? It was not malicious. It was not. He was trying to do what he set out in his life to do, which was help people, make people's lives better.
We were discussing this last night. With Curtis, Jenny and I were, and he was giving people. We didn't discuss him in particular, but just legal right to die stuff. He was basically just giving people agency over their own death.
Yeah, I think that the difference with serial killers is they're killing people against their wills. They're basically controlling somebody else's death, whether they want to die or not. But the people that went to Kevorkian, they sought him out specifically for that purpose.
And I'm terribly sorry I cut you off there. I mean, I was like, brainwave. I remembered the word.
You're fine. You're fine. Look, considering my brain operates at Raz frequency anyway, it's fine.
So here's my next part to that.
Okay.
We can
good,
all
because I want to
agree
weigh in on this when you're done. Because I didn't agree to that.
So, but by law, would he been a serial killer?
Yes. Let me explain why. Because I thought about this a lot. Like, I'm okay with assisted suicide. There's been plenty of times where I've, gone down that, that brain path thinking about this in depth. But if you think about it like this, if we are forced to call Manson a serial killer, we should also be forced to call him a serial killer, because he had a victim profile. People that were terminally ill that wanted to end their lives. Right? That's still a victim profile at the end of the day, no matter what how you look at it, and whether he was doing good or bad. Let's set that aside, regardless of whatever side you believe. He was still murdering people, whether it was something they wanted or not. By law and by definition, in a lot of different ways here, you could technically call him a serial killer.
I like how my brain just snaps and spits something out, and this is what we get.
I mean, I also don't think he is one, personally. Like, I agree with a lot of the things everybody are saying, but that devil's advocate side of it says he still had a victim profile.
Okay, so all right, on a personal level, just everyday, hey, there's this guy. No, he's not a serial killer. But if you look at the parameters put onto us by society and law, he is a serial killer.
Right.
Period. Like, this is one of those situations where perception or the situation changes the perception.
Right.
It's one of those things. But I mean, then again, look at how it played out. They tried to convict him of being a murderer, a serial killer, because of what he was doing. How well did that carry over?
Right.
It didn't, because on a personal level, not one of those juries was a complete, guilty.
Right.
Not one. So again, perception.
Public perception matters in most situations, actually. But yeah, guys, we ran a big gamut here, man. We started with fish, bounced around before, after, Deering. We made it all the way out to a Kevorkian now, an interesting turn of conversation by Pyle, which was super fascinating, I feel like.
We've covered a lot of ground on this episode.
We have. And we started off explaining to you guys that we just wanted to talk about the psychology behind a lot of what this was, not focus on every serial killer and all their facts and information that you can easily find in a lot of shows, because we don't want to do everything that's been done by everyone. We're all going to cover a lot of topics on podcasts. We all have podcasts and talk about a lot of the same shit. But I just kind of felt like our perspective on a lot of things, that's our angle, the story behind it and what we find interesting. And that's kind of where we were at with that. And that's also why I wanted to keep the victim, psychology edge of things and the encounter side its own episode, to kind of, because once we do that second episode at the end of that one, we can then kind of compare the two episodes and kind of see where our heads are at, on all this shit. But anyone can go read. I can't talk today. Anyone can go read Wikipedia and find out all these facts. It's not hard. It takes you a second to, a couple seconds to type in Wikipedia, and then a couple seconds to type in the name of the serial killer you want to find out about. Don't just read Wikipedia, though. Please actually follow the links at the bottom of the Wikipedia pages that take you to the actual sources. The big problem with people these days is they just spout facts they think they know or heard or Also, people can actually alter Wikipedia, guys. So you may not be getting all the facts you think you're getting, which is why if you do that on a college paper and you cite that as the source, you'll fail. There's a reason for that. It's basic common fucking sense. So do your research. Use Wikipedia as your jumping off point to kind of get a vibe for the information you want to learn more about. Follow the accredited links at the bottom that tells you the sources, and then go out and find your own sources. Find your own, vet your own sources on these things. Anybody got anything else we want to cover before we call it a night? We're just past that 2-hour mark.
I don't know, man. That was a lot. I really feel like that was a lot.
We covered a lot, yeah.
And what's more is if you really let us, we could probably do a lot more, but I don't think we should.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there's tons of more. There's people that have we could have gone into classifying them by their murder weapons. There've been serial killers that use icicles. I mean, there's all kinds of really just stuff out there. But I feel like we covered a lot of different kinds of serial killers that saw and operated a lot differently from one another, completely accidentally, guys, because we didn't plan any of what we were going to talk about. We rarely do, because if you plan too much, you're not actually doing your show so much sometimes. And this wasn't a 100% factual based show. If it was, then it'd be a different story. We'd be researching a lot of this and not just looking it up while we were doing this show.
Right.
And we also covered the difference between mass murderers, serial killers, cult leaders, mercy killings. We covered a lot of different categories there too.
Even delicious killers like the Muffin Man.
Yeah. And we got into a lot of fun. We even did a quiz. For the first time ever on the show, we did a quiz because it sounded fun, and it was. We
might need to do more quizzes in the future, because I think that's a good.
That segment was fun, actually. We should do that once in a while. That was pretty cool, actually. But yeah, guys, thanks as always for putting up with our shit and tuning in to another one of our mini shows. I feel like we're this week we are actually on 5 days a week this week, because it's a Chainer's Haunted Secrets week. Mm-hmm. So our every other Friday show is this week. So yeah, this is a 5-show week, guys. We got a lot. Yeah, and it started yesterday with that an amazing. By the way, I did catch a good chunk of that yesterday while I was going around. I was actually we were helping Wicked FX break down their booth and take their stuff back before we kind of went out to dinner. But during a lot of that, I was catching pieces of the show, and I'm going to go back and watch the whole thing tonight. That was a great interview, though, and Curtis is always amazing.
Yes, he is.
Super fucking awesome guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I was asleep during that time, because I got up at 4:30 this morning and did a 3-mile walk around the block.
I mean, you got to keep in shape for that. Those serial killings. I mean, for haunting ladies. What do you guys have going on tomorrow over on Splash Pages? Because I know that we're off on Tuesdays, but you're not.
Yeah, no. Tomorrow, Michael Walsh, he had to cancel last time. He had a family emergency, just a couple hours right before the show that he found out about. But we are getting Michael Walsh on. If you want to do the reading to go with us, it's The Silver Coin is a series that he drew and wrote parts of, and then he collaborated with other people. And it's 12 issues of comics. It's a really interesting read because it wraps around it's this cursed artifact, this silver coin that is cursed by somebody who is, well, you find out in the reading, but it keeps getting passed along, and it's kind of like a monkey's paw type of thing. People get it, make a try to have it get them forward, and they're feeding into this curse, but the curse is very hungry, so it takes from people. But it's the following this coin around and all the different stories people came up with, but it all ties into each other, so it was very well thought out and planned. But yeah, he's gonna come join us. He also has done some creep show stuff. He's done a lot of great art. But looking at some of his stories, that's one of the easiest ones to recommend right now. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. Yeah,
and that's at 8 p.m. right?
Yes,
on the Dorking Network.
Yep. That's the only show I do that's on the wrong time, so I'm always telling people the wrong time for it.
And that's why, because I always try it. Sometimes I don't tune in until 9 because I forget. I'm like, oh shit, it was today. I missed a whole hour of it already.
Yeah, no, 8 p.m. Eastern, and yeah, that's going to be a good show. And next Sunday, we are going to do our first real episode
Let's get to
I'm like,
Wednesday and
oh,
yeah,
wait,
let's do Wednesday
yeah.
first and like do the days of the week. See, like we were Monday, I was going to Tuesday, and then you're just like fuck the rest of the week. Let's just go to Sunday. No, but Wednesday, Unprinted Pages is officially solid on its new day and time, 9 p.m. like all of our shows. We got switched over, and you have some brand new people coming in that are amazing.
Oh, Patty and I get to interview Joshua and Heather of Water Tower Hill Publishing. And it's another episode where I actually get to talk about the publishing industry with publishers and how they do publishing.
And not gonna lie, I'm really excited about this, so I'm probably gonna sneak in there.
You're welcome. Definitely welcome, but I want to do it with Patty because she wanted to learn about publishing from other publishers.
Oh yeah.
And I always love these type of episodes. I got to do one with Cursed Dragon Ship, and I've loved them before their conception, and now I get to talk to another one. It's going to be so cool. I can't wait to see what I get to learn.
I'm so excited, and they are amazing people, man. I've talked to them on and off. I've talked to Heather on and off for a while. I've started talking to Josh recently, and also when a couple
clone the Dell.
when a married couple gets a chance to start a publishing company and do this together, like that adds this like whole other cool level of fucking magic, like to the whole family process, you know?
Oh yeah, that was the cool thing about Cursed Dragon Ship. It's also a married couple who are running a publishing company, and each of them have their own side of what they do at both publishing companies and how they see things. It's going to be beautiful.
I can't wait for that, dude.
I might have to watch it so I can get super unjaded.
Then, of course, Thursday we have another Allied Adventures coming back after that 1 week break for Brooklyn's birthday / getting ready for Whorehound. We're not sure which game we're playing. We've had some mix-ups, everything going on with the con, everything that's going on right now. It'll either be the continuation of D&D or Jason, who plays our lovely robot in D&D. He might also be finally starting his game based on White Wolf and the SCP Foundation. So we're kind of trying to sort which one it's going to be, but you will get to see some adventures no matter what on Thursday. And then Friday, who do we got for Chainer's Haunted Secrets, Pyle?
We have Mike Ross from Sinister Sydney in Sydney, Iowa. And boy, I'm excited to have my buddy Mike join us.
That's going to be just phenomenal, dude. I've never gotten a chance to meet him, but I've heard so much about him in this industry that like I kind of feel like I'm meeting a legend. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, he's done a lot of different things through his years of doing it, and not only is he a haunt owner and a haunter, a actor, a spokesman for a few things, he's also been in the movie industries. So you know what? I'm super happy, and he's been such a great friend to me that I just can't wait to have this wonderful person join us. And he's done his own podcast stuff before, so he knows how to do this way better than I do because I can't even start the intro.
He's like a missing piece guest for me because like he and I have like not even just you, like we have a lot of different people in common, like people I know that know him. And it's so weird to me that I've never actually talked to him. It's nuts, man. So that's a little mini dream come true for me too.
And I do believe he might have his wife on there with him if she's up to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, always can't wait to see him and can't wait to see her if she's able to make it.
That is amazing. And now, Del, since we don't do Saturdays, now we can go into Sunday. We can talk about the far future.
Yeah, I keep dropping out, so hopefully
Sunday is Easter.
Sunday is Easter, but
not always celebrate Easter.
We're going to have on the All Light Picture Show, Bernie Rao, the man behind Killer Sofa, which we reviewed and fucking love. He's the guy who made it. He's going to tell us about how the effects were done. He did a lot of it on Blender, which I can't even make a cube, which is the easiest
I want to be there for
do.
that.
So I have a feeling we're going to have a pretty packed episode because of the amount of us who enjoyed Killer Sofa.
And wasn't that our first Tomb?
Might have been.
It was one of our first for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's a glorious movie. If you guys have not seen it, go watch our Tomb on it or watch it. I reviewed this movie a couple of times with James and Uncle Necro, and it's just a fun movie. And it's for a B-horror, it's so well done. Like
it is.
The amount of intensity and expressions and things that they get from this recliner are insane.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, oh my god, I didn't think a chair could make me go like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And
yeah, it's just a great movie. And so I'm so excited to have him as a guest. Like, as we were planning the show, I'm like, so if we have this show, would you be a guest? Yes.
And that's also interesting because when we did that Monstered episode, I was contacted by one of the main people behind Monstered, and I pitched this show to him back then before we decided we were sure going to do it. So we're going to get some Monstered stuff on here, like, and with a lot of the other connections I have to the film industry. Like, I was also going around Horror Hound, like, hey, we're about to start this new show. So I was using that as like, I was kind of using Tomb and the Allied Picture Show as like two of our things to get people like guest wise. So I think this is going to be another show like Chain or Signed Secrets and Clutch that we just booked for like 4 months.
My bad. Okay.
No. It's not a bad thing, dude. It's not a bad thing.
Going for Patsy and Ashes over at Magenta Manors.
Yes.
They've been doing some great new shorts. Getting in some of the awards shows and stuff.
Oh yeah. So like, get excited about this show, guys. The Allied Picture Show. It's an all new thing. We've shown that we actually showed the trailer for it all the way back when we did the 24-hour show. That's the first time we actually showed the trailer for that show. So we're super excited about that, like big time. And as you guys can see, if you're just now joining us with the network, you're just now finding out about us because of Horror Hound or from whatever source. Again, we have so many different shows. I mean, so much. And we rotate every other week on what shows we're doing. So what you saw this week, you'll see some different things next week and so on and so forth. And also, if you're new to us, we even have a wrestling show that takes place the opposite Wednesdays we'll be doing stuff for. So there's just always so much to see. And if there's a subject that you notice that doesn't fit in on one of our current shows or you want to suggest we cover something, don't be shy about messaging us. There's a whole Discord you can join to hang out. We have Facebooks, Twitches. We do Twitch Gaming, which we'll be picking up again this week. Just so much different shit.
I think we have 10 shows now. Is that right? 10 or 11 different shows that we're doing?
So.
I think so.
Do we?
Well, there's 4 different rotations on Sunday.
Which are what? Then, let's go through those because
we have padded cells.
Yeah.
Or when we just do random shit.
Yeah.
We have the Clutch of Personalities where we interview authors.
Yeah.
They have the Allied Picture Show.
Our storytelling campfire show. Yeah.
No, the Allied Picture Show.
Oh no, sorry, Picture Show. Yeah, that's the movie one.
And then Allied Society.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing this season for those 4 shows. Then we have Mondays alternate between Tomb of the Terrible and Legend by Night here.
This show, that's 6.
And then on Wednesdays, we have Unprinted Pages. Oh, wait, there's also Corpse Garden Chronicles.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're up to 8 there. Then we have Mats and Monsters, which is 9.
9.
2 different Allied Adventures, which is 10 and 11, and Chainers.
12.
So that's 12. 12 different shows that we're doing.
And also the occasional unwrap that we pull out and dust off and do randomly when we feel like it.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, up to 13. Thank you, Tom. Yeah. So up to 13 different shows that, depending on which night of the week you feel like tuning in, and go check out our schedule and stuff like that and see what's coming up. We have something for hopefully everyone. Unless you're like, I don't think we
know
have
what
a
I
show on
realized we're
music,
missing.
but
What?
Because we're covering just about everything else. We don't have any shows pertaining to music.
I was just saying about music.
Well, I mean, the thing on the Clutch was that, like, originally it was artists in general. It was supposed to be like the original pitch. It started with authors, but she's also done like like artists as well. And we always just kind of thought if we actually found musicians that wanted to do something, that, like, maybe she would clutch that up too. But I mean,
maybe we need an Allied jukebox and like get people from different bands.
Allied Records.
we also have the show that doesn't come on live, which is
Elliott Radio.
Yeah,
yeah, there's Elliott Radio as well. Yeah, we almost forgot. Jeez, yeah. And then there's the Art of Storytelling, which we haven't even relaunched yet. That we're going to relaunch this fall. So there's a stupid fucking amount of shows.
And actually, I don't know that the Owlite needs to so much have as much of the, since we have Owlite Radio, but we also there's the Dorkening does have the radio show that you're involved with.
Owlite Radio isn't like a radio. It's more of an audio drama than anything. That's kind of what our Owlite Radio is. It's an audio drama within an audio drama with weird things happening. That plays music one song an episode. It's not traditional. It's not like a radio station.
Well, that's kind of like Welcome to Night Vale, because they play one song per episode and they call it the weather.
Yeah, honestly, like Owlite Radio is this weird cross between like a classic old school audio drama and Welcome to Night Vale in a lot of ways. There's definitely Welcome to Night Vale / Uncanny Valley vibes going on there. Definitely.
So, if you want in on all of this, find us on our Facebook. On God damn it, on our YouTube. Am I still
I'll tell you what.
Try it again.
My screen just went away, but so I don't know if I'm on or not.
Yeah, we can see you.
There.
We hear you.
Okay. Oh, there we go. I got my screen back. So yeah, so find us on our YouTube page, find us on our Twitch page. We're trying to get people to follow on Twitch because we want to be able to do more things, like and subscribe on all of our different stuff, and you'll get all the updates that you need. And you know, as Tom Dog always says, it doesn't cost you anything, and it means so much to us. It gets us the more followers and stuff we have, the more things we can do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we ask for. It's not because we're like greedy and want all of your attention, although we want that too, but we want to be able to utilize the sites the best we can to provide more content for you.
And with very, very soon, in the very near future, with Amina's help, we're also going to be like full on launching Owlite Gaming as well, which is more of our Twitch gaming side of things. So, and also in the future, not very, 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 very near future, Owlite the trading cards, where we're designing they're paid for. Our lovely Dell is designing them now, and so far, I can tell you guys, these are exciting. They look fucking amazing.
I've seen mine, and she chose a really great picture of me because, man, I look fucking hot.
I would have gone with the pirate, but
was it the picture of you as Inya?
No, it wasn't.
Hot
Thank
damn
goodness.
Is
that series too.
Just smexy, you know.
What's that?
We'll wait for the trading card game. We'll do a game one day with a card game one day, and Enya will be one of the cards you can play to like beat somebody's ass.
Well, I did see that Dell is doing red cards and blue cards, so I mean, a game could possibly be made between the red cards
versus
and blue
blue
cards.
Listen,
So
I'm not allowed to. I've been banned from making us do crazy projects for the rest of this year. Okay, and I get why, because now I'm making us do a movie and a box fort. So like, I need to calm my shit down and rein it in. So no card games discussions until next year.
Until at least after the box fort.
Yeah, the box fort. Yeah, after the box fort, and then we talk about that.
With the trading cards, so back to the red and blue. It's actually going to be red and gray now because due to some issues with the way that the colors work on the backgrounds, I need to change the borders on the blue cards and fix those. But there will be multicolored. And I do have one idea in the future. I'll give you guys this hint. If we're doing something that's at all like Magic the Gathering style, which I'm hoping is kind of, you know, that's my background. I have a couple of different games that I've played that are CCGs, but I do want to make a Rob's House card. And the rule with Rob's House is that if Rob's House, it will be put on as a land of some sort or that type of equivalent.
An artifact.
No, it's gonna be some sort of land. But if Rob's house is in play and any of its occupants are in the controller's control in play as well, you can tap both to pull another occupant of Rob's house from your deck and put it into your hand.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So
We're working on some shit.
That right there.
I will tell you right now, that is how you build a deck where you just get infinite draw and swing.
I think we
Isn't
just
that
have
a
like
beautiful idea? You still
we
have
have
to cast
location
them. You're just
cards.
gonna
Like
put it in your hand.
instead of making them lands, we have our own separate category. Like you have artifacts, you have this, that. But we have location cards. Like that's location. Rastopia can be a location. The Corpse Garden can be a location. Like
Wolf Dojo.
Yeah, Wolf Dojo can be. We can do some location cards too, which that would be a cool angle. And then like later on, we add some like magic unglued shit for no reason. Like it's a whole separate little booster pack.
But
Wolf Dojo could give you like a booster to your agility and your stamina and all of that.
Your hit points.
When Wolf's Dojo is in play, all warriors get +1/+1.
And also need food badly.
Oh, and first strike.
First strike.
Strike first, strike hard.
You guys give us some ideas, but we're not going to do this for another year because I refuse.
Well,
She says right now.
If you have my normal picture, like as the gray card, I guess it's gonna be gray now instead of blue. Then you need to make the Nurse Enya card red, so it'll be opposite.
See, what I said earlier is like each show is like its own deck. So like Legends by Night would be like, the Loveland Frog and his mesmerizing wand, like Bigfoot, stuff like that. If you did Chainer Signed Secret deck, you'd have Chainer. Obviously, you'd have Nurse Enya, stuff like that. Like different shows would be like different, different fun stuff.
Do I get to summon up Steve Van Samson?
Yeah. Oh, of course. We've got to get Steve Van Samson as his own card. If not in Series 2 of the trading cards, then in the game. Like, I feel like that should be like the Rough House edition, like the add-on, the Rough House add-on.
We'll have to get a Weird House one as well, so we can
get
Curtis and all the lovely folks from there.
Oh, dude, those would all be great clutch cards for the clutch deck, if you think about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. We're gonna get nuts with this, guys. Like at some point. It takes a while.
We'll have to get their permission first, though.
Yeah. But like
can't just
of
say,
our crazy projects we keep forgetting to
do
mention, constantly we're forgetting to mention this, the Elliott Menagerie, which is the anthology book for charity that we've all been working on with short stories in the background. So that's going to be hosts that you see frequently, hosts that you see infrequently, and some guests that we've had are all coming together for charity to do this really cool horror anthology. And we just all had to turn in the stories. Like our deadline was recent, and the hard work is 5 days ago, and the hard work has already begun for the editing, and finishing up artwork and things like that. So that's going to be the soonest of our crazy ass projects that we came up with a long time ago that are,
I got my story in.
Yeah, we're making good on all our promises and all our weird fucking ideas, and we're never going to tell you to what degree we're going to do these ideas. I mean, me and Pyle might just go into the woods and film Bewildered Beast on my phone, and that's your movie. I mean, we never made promises. We just said we were going to do something.
I can add footage. If you want it in the woods, I can add footage as long as they don't have to be like the same woods.
Yeah. I mean, we never said to what degree we were going to do any of this shit. We just said we were going to do them. So keep that in mind. We reserve the right to, do whatever the fuck we want.
Blair Witch this out?
I was going to show up, so I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I could run around Columbus and capture B-roll on my camera and just send it to Raz and see how it pops up in the movie. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Like, but it's
I
gonna
could
be
mount
fun.
the GoPro on my bike and just ride around Columbus and see what happens.
It might just be me and Pyle in our underwear driving his van around, roundabouts trying to make tornadoes and just randomly shouting out the window, going, "Look, notice the grass. The Bewildered Beast has been here," and that's gonna be like 45 minutes of just us doing that and noticing things and talking about the Bewildered Beast, like we did at Loveland.
Notice the gas station.
Notice Pyle in his underwear.
Notice the end of this show. The Bewildered Beast has been here.
I got